Today's question is, what is the difference between exegesis and eisegesis? In this video, I'll answer that question from a biblical perspective. Afterwards, as always, I'll share some helpful resources, so stick around until the end. Exegesis and eisegesis are two conflicting approaches in Bible study. Exegesis is the exposition or explanation of a text based on a careful, objective analysis. The word exegesis literally means to lead out of. That means that the interpreter is led to his conclusion by following the text. The opposite approach to Scripture is eisegesis, which is the interpretation of a passage based on a subjective, non-analytical reading. The word eisegesis literally means to lead into, which means the interpreter injects his own ideas into the text, making it mean whatever he wants. Obviously, only exegesis does justice to the text. Eisegesis is the mishandling of the text and often leads to a misinterpretation. Exegesis is concerned with discovering the true meaning of the text, respecting its grammar, syntax, and setting. Eisegesis is concerned only with making a point, even at the expense of the meaning of words. 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 15 commands us to use exegetical methods. Present yourself to God as one approved, a workman who does not need to be ashamed and who correctly handles the word of truth. An honest student of the Bible will be an exegete, allowing the text to speak for itself. Eisegesis easily lends itself to error as the would-be interpreter attempts to align the text with his own preconceived notions. Exegesis allows us to agree with the Bible. Eisegesis seeks to force the Bible to agree with us. The process of exegesis involves first, observation. What does the passage say? Second, interpretation. What does the passage mean? Third, correlation. How does the passage relate to the rest of the Bible? And fourth, application. How should this passage affect my life? Eisegesis, on the other hand, involves first, imagination. What idea do I want to present? Second, exploration. What scripture passage seems to fit with my idea? And third, application. What does my idea mean? Notice that in eisegesis, there is no examination of the words of the text or their relationship to each other, no cross-referencing with related passages, and no real desire to understand the actual meaning. Scripture serves only as a prop to the interpreter's idea. To illustrate, let's use both approaches in the treatment of one passage. 2 Chronicles chapter 27, verses 1 and 2. Jotham was 25 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 16 years. He did what was right in the eyes of the Lord, just as his father Uzziah had done. But unlike him, he did not enter the temple of the Lord. With eisegesis, first the interpreter decides on a topic. Today it's the importance of church attendance. The interpreter reads 2 Chronicles chapter 27 verses 1 and 2 and sees that King Jotham was a good king, just like his father Uzziah had been. Except for one thing, he didn't go to the temple. This passage seems to fit his idea, so he uses it. The resulting sermon deals with the need for passing on godly values from one generation to the next. Just because King Uzziah went to the temple every week didn't mean that his son would continue the practice. In the same way, many young people today tragically turn from their parents' training and church attendance drops off. The sermon ends with a question. How many blessings did Jotham fail to receive simply because he neglected church? Certainly, there is nothing wrong with preaching about church attendance or the transmission of values, and a cursory reading of 2 Chronicles chapter 27 verses 1 and 2 seems to support that passage as an apt illustration. However, that interpretation is totally wrong. For Jotham not to go to the temple was not wrong. In fact, it was very good, as a proper approach to the passage will show. With exegesis, first the interpreter reads the passage, and to fully understand the context, he reads the histories of both Uzziah and Jotham in 2 Chronicles chapters 26 and 27, 2 Kings chapter 15 verses 1 through 6, and verses 32 through 38. In his observation, he discovers that King Uzziah was a good king who, nevertheless, disobeyed the Lord when he went to the temple and offered incense on the altar, something only a priest had the right to do. 2 Chronicles chapter 26, verses 16 through 20. Uzziah's pride and his contamination of the temple resulted in his having leprosy until the day he died. 2 Chronicles chapter 26, verse 21. Needing to know why Uzziah spent the rest of his life in isolation, the interpreter studies Leviticus chapter 13, verse 46, and does some research on leprosy. Then he compares the use of illness as a punishment in other passages, such as 2 Kings chapter 5 verse 27, 2 Chronicles chapter 16 verse 12, and chapter 21 verses 12 through 15. By this time, the exegete understands something important. When the passage says Jotham did not enter the temple of the Lord, it means he did not repeat his father's mistake. Uzziah had proudly usurped the priest's office. Jotham was more obedient. The resulting sermon might deal with the Lord's discipline of his children, with the blessing of total obedience, or with our need to learn from the mistakes of the past, rather than repeat them. Of course, exegesis takes more time than eisegesis, but if we are to be those unashamed workmen who correctly handle the word of truth, then we must take the time to truly understand the text. Exegesis is the only way. Want to learn more? Subscribe so you don't miss the next video. Visit gotquestions.org for more great content, and check out the details section below this video. There's one book I recommend along with several related questions. If you'd like to learn about Bible Munch, or if you're interested in bite-sized devotionals, subscribe to Bible Munch on YouTube. It's linked right here. Now remember, you got questions, the Bible has answers and will help you find them.